Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Lailani, and I'm really excited tonight because we have joining us a very popular name within our community. You guys all know her from her amazing book, Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones. High Priestess Stephanie Rose Bird. Stephanie Rose Bird is a painter and an author of several best-selling books on earth spirituality, hoodoo, and anthropology, including her book Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones, 365 Days of Hoodoo, Light, Bright, and Damn Near White, and African American Magic. Priestess Bird, who holds a BFA cum laude and an MFA, is a devotee of the divinely feminine. She is an elder, eclectic pagan, magic maker, and keeper of spiritual wisdom of her indigenous African ancestors. Her work centers around the nexus of earth wisdom and the legacy of Black cultural heritage. And of course, you can find her at www.stephanierosebird.com. Now, tonight, we are going to be talking not only about her new book, which is entitled African American Magic, a modern grimoire for the natural home, but we'll also be getting to know Stephanie Rose Bird tonight and her role within our spiritual, magical, witchy, Wiccan, pagan community, right? So without further ado, let's bring her on. Hey there.
Hello, how are you?
I am super stoked that you are here. How are you?
I feel the same way. I'm super stoked to be here.
So tonight, I definitely wanted to speak about your newest book, which I'm going to put a link to in the comments, and it's also a link in the description, along with your previous books. But I wanted to talk to you first about you
Okay.
specifically and your journey. So let's start with I was born and then I was a child. But no, let's start with, how you grew up. What was your exposure or your search? When did that all start with regards to spirituality and your exposure to magic? When did that all start?
I think that I've always been a spiritual person. Um, in the beginning, I was raised in the United Methodist Church, and I got saved. I got happy. I joined some choirs and loved the movement and singing Negro spirituals and things like that. So that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. I always had another part to me that was even like at 10, 11 years old, where I was more attracted to things like alchemy and the craft. And I want to say dark, but it's not like dark as in bad, but
Right.
mystery, metaphysics, things like that. So I began that at a pretty young age. I would say, like I said, preteen, and there were always like little like clues around. My I had heard that my mother's mother was a spiritualist minister and healer.
Mm,
And then my grandmother, who was alive and who I just adored growing up, is um, was an intuitive. She read tea leaves. She read just regular cards. She was a dream worker.
wow.
So these things were just a part of my being. I say clues because I would also find different kinds of books, like by Albertus Magnus and dream
Mm.
books, even like what is the significance of numerology? What does it all mean? So I had a very inquiring mind. I loved to read. I loved the darker, mysterious sides of life. So that is the beginning of my path.
I hear that. And honestly, it is so freaking relatable. Like, growing up in the 80s and 90s and the exposure to magic and anything outside of your three monotheistic religions was truly a search. It was a rabbit hole that you had to be someone looking for it in
Mhm.
order to really, you know what I mean? Like, it was definitely not something that you were exposed to constantly growing up. So I totally feel you in the sense that, like, pulling from movies, pulling from books, watching, your ancestors, watching your family members, and trying to connect those dots for yourself.
Yeah,
It's a very eclectic, personal, solitary journey, but at the same time, as we can see from your books and from previous interviews and all that, is that somehow you still manage to find your way back to your roots, your African American roots. And like, that is just so baller. So as you were going through your journey, like, what was the atmosphere like, when you were in these magical spiritual spaces? What was it like for you to be in those spaces as an African American woman, actually?
yeah. So I'm a little bit stuck in my earlier development part. So I just want to clarify that I saw so much. Actually saw magic and mysticism in the church. Um,
Oh, yeah.
the yeah, the sort of like holiness churches, and
Mhm.
my mother was very prone to getting happy, which made me also get happy. And if people don't know what that is, it's sort of an ecstatic state that you get into,
When the
and it
spirit comes down, when the spirit comes on you.
down and moves you, and that's so close to what happens in Houdan, where the spirits ride you. So yeah, it was
Yes.
like right there, and I could feel it, and I was drawn to all of it like a moth to the flame. So
Yes.
yeah, there was that, and but I grew up in a very white area. Um, Primarily, the little enclave that I lived in was Black, African American, but when you stepped outside of that, which you could do rather quickly, um, was a very white rural area. And I don't know, like when I began to really want to delve deeply into this kind of work and thinking, I wanted resources and people to go to, even that were my age, that I could relate to and that were doing the kind of work that I sought to do. So that was somewhat challenging. I mean, I would have a few different family members that were doing different things that were outside of Christianity and outside of Islam. But by and large, it felt like a lonely place to be in the
For
day to day.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. There's something really special about people who kind of walk the line, um, like the people who live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's something so special about us because I grew up in the suburbs as well too. And like, you have that city urban life, you have that rural life, and they're all just a hop, skip, and jump away on either side.
Right.
And then you have the drastic cultural differences. Usually in the rural areas, it's mostly white, and usually in the urban areas, it's mostly, people of color. And so to get those worlds and kind of toe that line, you're never like Puerto Rican enough or black enough, and you're never white enough, and it was always just trying to figure out who you were in those spaces.
Yeah.
I honor you so much for like not giving up,
Mhm.
for mapping out your own path, because a lot of people, the solitary path is not for everyone. It does require a certain type of grit, spiritual
Yeah.
grit.
Thank you. And thank you for that insight. And yeah, I want to just say that, I don't know if I didn't say this right, but I'm from a very rural area where I grew up.
Mm.
Yeah. So it wasn't suburban at all. We would go to suburban malls and things like that, and they would be like 45 minutes away. Or, yeah. So, like, quite a little hike.
Wow.
But yeah, it is. It's like, I don't know. So then thank goodness for literature, for books, for
Mm.
as a youth, like for Edgar Allan Poe and like these different kinds of authors that that you could see saw to the other side. But I think the nature of your question, I think what it also makes me think about is that I wrote in an anthology called "Bringing Race to the Table,"
Mm,
and just a small piece. And as I grow older, I've been thinking more and more about my path and about how unpaved it was.
yeah,
It was very raw and unpaved, and I didn't feel a lot of the camaraderie um, of having, yeah, the kind of kinship that I sought. So
right, right. So, as we move through these spaces, right, and
yeah.
you become more proficient in various different subjects and you find your way, what now we get to what brought you to writing these books? Because I mentioned in the introduction, that first one, Stick Stones, I mean, that is like a staple on pretty much most of our bookshelves. And what got you there?
Um,
Yes.
yes. So what got me there is my painting, basically, and also botanical crafts and gardening. In my painting, I liked painting vegetables and plants and flowers, and I saw them as being alive with spirit.
Oh, yeah.
So from there, it was like a pretty logical jump into paganism, into hoodoo, into those kinds of divergent paths, but still magical paths. I would say, yeah, that is my answer. Even like something as simple as soap making. A lot of people that are in a magic maker space make soap, make paper.
Mm,
So just that real like nitty gritty, like let's work with plants and bring them through different stages of alchemy, and to produce something really magical and useful. So it was through working with my hands, I would say, quite a lot. The painting, the crafts, that kind of,
wow.
yeah.
And was it ever, so you had mentioned when you were growing up that you were, thank God for literature, right? And we're in like a weird space right now on social media. You'll even find it on Facebook like back in 2010, and where there's this sort of like looking down upon not only eclectic and solitary people, but looking down on people who didn't learn from specific elders or specific traditions and instead learned through books or through media. And I have to ask you, because not only were those options for you, but you yourself contributed into that book world to help future generations. So I guess my question to you would be, is there any is there any grounding to that assumption that one is not authentic simply because one did not learn from an elder, or one is not authentic because they learned from books?
Yeah. Um, okay. So just I just want to say that like I was taught by my ancestors, and I feel as though I have a authentic, intuitive, what do I call it? Mm, it's my my intuitive skills are inherited. So
Yes.
so there is a very natural and authentic path to elders and to ancestors beyond them, and they can come to you through books. Aren't They are a vehicle, but dreams, plants, trees, the earth itself. Like that is how we learn. If you are not doing an apprenticeship directly with someone, you can still, if you have a magical mind, you can leap into those kind of spaces.
You sure can. You sure can. Which brings us to this book, because you talk about utilizing the tools around you, specifically nature. And I
Mm,
think that that kind of feeds into sort of your journey as well. That I think a lot of us who grow up in the culture, right, the BIPOC culture,
yeah,
is this idea that when you really go down to the root of it, whether you're Black, Hispanic, Asian, Indigenous, when you really get down to the root of it, it's nature. I mean, it's
yes,
nature, you
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
It
Yes,
it's just that is the way, you
yeah,
know? And so it's a matter of which tradition's interpretation do you wanna, like, buy into? But
right.
ultimately, it's nature, and so you did a wonderful job here. Even though this is a grimoire,
Hmm.
it reads more like a self-help book that you can participate in daily,
Yes,
that is catered to every season.
yes,
So, I know this is a reprint, and
yes,
I know that the reprint the title had more to do with this concept of 4 seasons,
right.
and I definitely don't wanna lose that. Why is the 4 seasons so important? Why did you choose to format it that way? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so it's something that I work with a lot in my writings. Even my next book is also has a significant section that is built around the seasons. It is how I live and how I have pretty much always lived, except for my short stint in California, which has really different kinds of seasons. But
Mm.
pretty much it's been these sort of temperate zones that I've lived in where it's like distinctly winter, spring, summer, fall. And it colors your being and your life. And it's important to move along with it, like to move with the
Mm.
circadian rhythms, like be with it, be in it, appreciate it, utilize different plants and roots and trees that come from these different seasons. So, um, yeah,
Yes. I
it
mean,
is
speak
important.
on it. It is so true. Speak on it because I always teach my students, especially in the first couple of classes, that getting in accordance with nature and getting in accordance with nature's cycles is
Yeah,
one of the best things you can do for yourself.
yeah,
You know, knowing what your birth chart is, knowing how the planets move from the
mm,
time you were born and what that looks like in the physical 3D world can y it is amazing how well you can navigate your life knowing that information and moving with it like that,
yes,
you know? So, like, I preach to that, it's so true.
yeah.
But
It's also like everything in time. Everything in time is really important to realize and think about, and that is the circadian aspect of it, where it doesn't happen like this. It doesn't happen just if you have some recipes and some rituals in your repertoire. Doesn't mean that you can make magic. You have
mm,
to really get attuned to nature, to spirit, to your ancestors, listen to your dreams, um, find your true path. So that all takes time, but I think that aligning yourself with nature and the environment and seasons is an important step.
it sure is, and you see this a lot in a lot of mystical practices, like mystic
Yeah,
practices. There's this sense of the body needing to be purified, the
yeah,
body needing to be you know, in relation to the cosmos so that it can be more finely attuned to God, you
yes,
know? And this book really takes time to talk about, like, not just your mind and your emotion and your body, but it gets into, like, different tea recipes. It has, you know, anecdotes, small little stories to explain some of these herbs, you know, John the Conqueror, things like that. And I absolutely love it because there's something, I mean, seriously, there's something new you could do every day. You don't have to try and squeeze the whole season into, like, 1 week, you know what I mean?
that would be great. That would not be. advised.
Right.
Advised, yeah.
So this mystical experience, right? This not mystical experience, this mystical lifestyle, if you
Yeah.
will, because that's a new concept. That's much more of like a Western 16th century, mystic concept. Whereas in our indigenous practices, this was just this is just what the fuck we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And there was no
we
choice.
woke up, we prayed over the water before we
Yeah.
showered. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
enlivened and enchanted our food before we ate it. Like it was just what we did.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And that is so true. Yes. So yeah, sometimes like language is insufficient to really
Oh, yeah.
um, describe what you're trying to speak about. Mystical is a very, I almost want to call it a cheap word, because you need to go a lot further and deeper in. It's just like it's shorthand, I would say, for a type of experience. But I am definitely, as you know, onto the African and indigenous African side of things. So
Right. And
mhm.
in those practices, there are taboos, there are certain ways of living, certain ways to navigate the world, and
Yes.
the spirits within those practices are very much related to nature. So again, it kind of brings us full back,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
love that you bring everything back to the roots. So like even if you're not African American,
Yeah.
the idea of putting yourself in accordance with nature is
Yes.
really the point of this.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then practicing intuition and being able to talk to your spirits, all that will then follow,
Yes.
because you've purified, you've synchronized, you've done all the things. That's
Right.
what this is.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And slow down.
Slow
Yeah,
down.
slow down, and that's the only way that you'll hear trees talk to you. That's the way that you will feel the nuance in waters,
Mm.
bodies, natural bodies of waters, and that kind of thing. I feel like our culture, um, whatever race or ethnicity, a lot of us are in a rush. I
Oh,
want to
you
find
ain't
out
kidding.
now. I want to know. I want to know, and um, it's not like that. So.
Yes. Slowing down. And it's funny because when you really look at this, someone in the comment section said earth magic, that it's very similar to earth magic.
Yes.
And it is. It really is. And I think like when you talk about earth magic, when you think about the concept of earth and matter, it is a very slow moving. Like we're talking about thousands of years for something to evolve, or millions of
Right.
years for something to, you know what I mean? A
Yeah.
rock, being
Yes.
eroded.
And then the fossils and yeah, the whole petrified wood and all of that.
Yeah, so be patient with
Yeah.
yourself, right? Giving yourself grace because you are an earthly creature, you're made of the earth and it
Mhm.
moves slow. It's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, in terms of these seasons, right? Because I really love this format. I really do. And it's very playful. You have a lot of like fun little like recipes and crafts that you can do here as well. But
Yeah.
in terms of, the layout of this book,
Yes.
is there a favorite season that you engage in? Is there a season that sort of you're kind of assigned to because of the spirits that you work with? Do you notice that they all are a part of a particular thing?
Yes. So, I mean, become activated in the fall, but my season is winter,
Oh,
and
okay.
I like to see trees show their bones at that time,
Mm.
in the skeletal structures without stripped of leaves. And it's a time of like shrouding, pulling in, um, absorbing. It's a really powerful time also of fire. So
Mm.
that's like an element that's very, I have a very curious relationship with fire because I am definitely a water person, but I love winter. Ice,
Hey, yeah, I
ice,
was gonna say winter is just frozen water.
yeah, yeah. It's a great time for learning and studying and being scholarly and writing poetry and spoken word and things like that. So I feel like the summer that we're in right now, it's busy and it's outward and it's social and communal. Winter's communal too because of all of the holidays that fall within it. But
Mm,
yeah, I feel like summer keeps you really busy and going like this.
right.
Like, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to this festival. I have to go to that conference. I have to go to that workshop. And in the winter, especially if you live someplace like I do in the Midwest, it gets really cold and it freezes up. And
Yeah.
sometimes I love being snowed in. I love it. It's like time stopped. It's
It
like,
is the
okay,
best.
yeah, we cannot. Um, we're not doing that stuff out there. We're going to do the stuff in the home now and in the head. So I like winter.
There's something interesting, and each season has their place, right?
Yeah,
You talk about it in your book as well. You're going through these phases along with nature.
yes,
Um, but there's something to be said about winter. Time does slow down. It's a time of hibernation and really going inward and stuff. But
yes,
it's it's interesting because these seasons, they are in constant movement within you,
yeah,
like, all year round. So, like, even if you live in, like, Arizona, you can have your personal winter. You know what I mean? You can do
yes.
that within. This
And
book allows you to experience it sort of like
yeah, yeah, with the wet and the dry seasons, and the seasons are just taking a different form. As I said, I speak from my knowledge base. This is like what I know, what I grew up with. But I have experience. I lived in Australia for a year, and I experienced a whole different notion of seasonality there. So, um, a very cool place.
what does one do in that situation? Because it must be tough for someone who's born in a place where they've never experienced winter, so they don't even have a frame of reference to pull from.
Mm.
You know, it makes you wonder, what are their cycles? What could they rely on to get themselves in accordance with the divine?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they're in there all right with the new time and everything. But it's the wet and the dry seasons are important, like they are in different parts of Africa, and you need to make preparations for both. You need to prepare, be ready. They make themselves known. They are. I mean, you can't. They're unavoidable. They're times that really either you could say constrict or enhance your life. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, I think that there I can't speak for it as a Australian, even though I am adopted by an Aboriginal clan over there. But
yeah.
I just didn't really live there long enough to really experience it again and again and again. Um, but one of the things that I also write about is how we are seasons. So
Mm,
there is the elder is the season of winter where I am now. I
mm,
like to see myself as fall winter, so as to give myself a long, long lifespan. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because sometimes that winter, if you're at the end of winter, it's like not too good. But yeah, we have our different life passages that also coordinate with seasonality. So,
Mm. I have a wonderful question here by a Facebook user.
yes.
And honestly, it's going to trip me up too.
Okay.
This question is, does climate change play a factor in connecting with the seasons? So we're seeing climate change. It's definitely one of those things where you can't deny it now, bitches.
Right. Right.
you know. So
Yeah.
how do we as H how? How does one, does it play a factor or does it not matter? Can we address it the same way that we would address, someone who lives in Africa or Arizona, where it's like you kind of look for the changes
Mhm.
and then adjust to the changes.
And the nuance.
Yeah.
I think even a place like where I live now in the Midwest is like in Chicagoland. Seasons are much more nuanced than they were when I first moved here, like 30 something years ago. It was like bam, bam. Now it's like, um, you know, it's different. It
Yeah.
is, we don't have the really strong, lengthy heat waves that we had, and we don't have the really cold, deep freezes. Like sometimes you can go a winter, believe it or not, without gloves, or at least a
Mm,
portion of it without boots. That would be unheard of before. So I think that we just adapt our magic and listen, be attentive, stay attuned, and you will hear the messages of what to do and how to alter your practices as you move along. It's a
I
really
love that. I love that. In psychology, a lot of times when, because I work with adults with mental health issues, and we always teach our direct support professionals that behavior is a language.
yes,
Behavior is a language. So even if that person is nonverbal, or even if they don't have the ability to express themselves the right way, their behavior will do it, right? And I feel like nature is kind of the same. Like unless you've actively built a communicative language with nature, either through dreams or through divination or whatever, unless you've actively done that, you really just have to watch nature's behavior
yeah,
and like move accordingly.
right. Mhm. And be with it, be in it, and you will get your messages as to how to proceed.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
I think it's interesting too, because the same way that you talk about because again, this is very much like a self-help book. It really is. It's just so jam-packed with fun stuff.
Mhm.
But it's not just getting in accordance with nature in the sense of um putting yourself out, but more that it, it, it it's a co-creative process. So as we see, we've actively destroyed the planet, and so now we're seeing the consequences of that.
Yes,
So now our spiritual practices have to adjust
yeah,
because it doesn't match anymore,
right.
or we have to change our other behavior, our mundane behaviors, to then bring nature back to where it was supposed to be.
Yeah,
Either way, it's us and nature doing the thing together.
yeah,
And
that's
we can
very
talk about
beautiful.
that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I think things like earthing, earthing, walking barefoot in nature rather than driving a car, like just finding paths to walk and try to help the situation out.
Yes. Pick up some freaking plastic when you're at the beach, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And don't use it yourself as much as possible because it's very, very toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in these practices here, in some of these examples that you give, or even in some of the stories that you give, do you have a favorite? I mean, that's kind of like asking who your favorite child is, but is there a specific part in the book that you really like? I'm guessing it's in the winter section.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I do like my fire and ice ritual. I like bringing those two elements close together. I think there's something very magical about that. Um, but yeah, all the work with cedar and pine and that. I just went out today and I had to do. I don't have those trees on my property, so I had to do some clippings in a place that shall not be named because we're so like not allowed to do things, and so I got these really small, was very like prayerful and grateful and yeah, just thankful for having my little piece of spruce and scotch pine and what else did I get? Oak. Where was I going with this?
The ritual, the ice fire.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then, and those three that I got, ironically, to our conversation, there's also for summer, there's the oak bath, the oak leaf bath, which is another of my favorites. So there's a lot. Obviously, like you kind of when you write a book like that, you put your favorite things in there. It's like, oh,
Definitely.
like this, like that, So there's a lot that of delight for me in those different kinds of workings that are in that book.
You could
And
tell it. You could tell it's written with love, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Tell. So what advice would you give to, urban dwellers where none of these ingredients are accessible? What do we
Mhm.
do?
Well, I live in an urban suburb right now. So what I do is I grow a lot. I have, I have you can see behind me, like I have a money tree, I have a rubber tree, I have an orchid that was gifted to me by a nice person who I hope is watching um, right now. But yeah, grow in your home. You can grow palm, you can grow banana, you can grow lemon. Trees. You can do a lot of growing orange, all the different kinds of citrus. And then outside, if you can even do window boxes for your herbs in the kitchen. I like the idea of doing for yourself and growing and making on your own. So I really encourage that also just in terms of like getting to know nature and be immersed, go to forest preserves, go to the conservatory. Those kinds of spaces will be helpful to you, particularly like an arboretum for tree knowledge and um, things like that. So the which one that I mentioned? The conservatories I love, but they are a little canned.
Mm,
They're a little like for display.
mm,
But the preserves are more natural, and you can see brooks and ponds and different kinds of things going on. So yeah, you just have to reach out a little bit more and do a little bit more work, but it's well worth it. Your while.
for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate the answer of growing it yourself and kind of doing it yourself. Number one, we got to get back to that anyway. Gardening is a form of resistance. It's a decolonizing
Yes.
thing. We need to definitely do that. But I love that you answered with that because so many people will just say, oh, well, just go to the dollar store and buy the thing.
No.
And it's not about the ingredient. At the end of the day, it's never really about the ingredient. It's
Yeah.
about that connection,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly. And I think that in my earlier works, they were very ingredient heavy because I think it's kind of like I was coming from a fine art kind of world and worldview.
Yeah.
And as I have developed and grown as an herbalist and magical practitioner, I have less emphasis on ingredients and more on the work, like do the work, just like you're saying. Um,
Nice.
don't go, please don't go to the dollar store.
It's true, man. And and I think that that again, that's part of the journey. We go we as we learn, it's the same thing as getting older and learning to just be quiet after a
Yeah,
while. Like you there's a point where you're just tired of talking. People
yeah,
are gonna people are gonna misunderstand you. People are gonna and you're just like, "Ugh, I'm gonna stay quiet." you know?
yeah,
And it's the same thing with, our magic. You get to a point where all that complicated stuff was cool in the beginning to kind of get you into
right.
a ritualistic framework. But
Yes,
once you've mastered the skill of getting in and out, it
yeah,
becomes much more simpler.
much
Much more.
simpler. Yeah. Yeah, I liked like Egyptian kiffy, for example, that has about
Oh my God.
20 ingredients, and you have to soak things and dry them, and
Let the young ones make it.
yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I can get a big bang for my spiritual buck with myrrh and frankincense and like copal, and like maybe some Palo Santo, and yeah, I'm good.
And you're good.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we understand there's no universal ingredient, there's no universal fix all whatever
Right.
herb or plant, but but you don't have to put 25 ingredients. You could put like 3.
Right. So, yeah, I don't want people to think that I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I am like African American Magic is a reprint of Four Seasons of Mojo, which was my second book and written around 2006. So, a
Gotcha.
long, long time ago. And as I move forward, and we'll talk later about my upcoming works, then this newer work is not at all like that. So,
Well, we're actually at that point. So good
mhm,
timing on that one because to the audience who's out there right now, if you haven't already obtained Stick, Stones, Root, and Bones, and you are getting on to Amazon or wherever you need to get this book, I highly, highly suggest you do so. And in the meantime, yes, Miss Stephanie Rosebird, tell us what your upcoming projects are, if there are any books coming up, where people can reach you, any classes,
mhm.
because we got my fans are gonna stalk you. That's it. It's
Okay.
it's
All
done.
right. So first of all, like if they follow me on Instagram and or Facebook, because I do dual posts on the same thing on them, but I have a professional page on Facebook, and on Instagram I am S period R period Bird, BIRD, my name. Um, And the reason that I'm saying this is because you find out my news that way. I always post, like I posted this beautiful flyer that you made for this event, and
Thank you.
my flyers, my links, and things like that. So, what do I have coming up? I don't think I've announced this on a podcast before, but yeah, I am. I'm going to be still under wraps, so I'm not going to give a lot of details except to say that I'm going to be opening myself up to apprentices. A 6 month long program. And there, like I said, there will be details. It is foreseen to be in January to start around Martin Luther King's birthday because that is an auspicious day,
Yes.
powerful day. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Mhm.
Um, also, I have this like incredible encyclopedic, but not encyclopedia book um, called Motherland Herbal. At this point, this could change, but it is you will get that sense of what I'm saying. Motherland Herbal. So it's of the
Mm.
African diaspora, an herbal guide full of all different manners of um, tree medicine, plant medicine, and all of the elemental medicines, as well as the medicine of folklore and storytelling from Africa and the diaspora.
Oh my gosh. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
yeah.
That is gonna be an amazing reference book. Oh,
Mhm.
I can't wait. I will be first on the list for that one.
So that's coming out from HarperCollins, and it's a combination of Harper One and Amistad Books, which is their one is their Mind Body Spirit Harper One, and Amistad is the African American imprint. So it will be a merge of those two, and I am very grateful and excited about that coming. And then I have some more, as you may notice, Stick, Stones, Roots, and Bones that you mentioned very kindly, and this 365 Days of Hoodoo.
Yes!
Um, there is no audiobook at the moment, but it seems as though that may change soon.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Now, are you gonna be reading it, do you think, or do you think
no,
they okay, okay,
there's going to be a narrator for
okay.
them, but oh, and I didn't mention also that I am illustrating Motherland Herbal. So yeah.
Like, with your original artwork?
Yes.
Shut up! Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Mhm.
that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. I'm so honored, and it's a privilege to be able to do that. So I'm
Yes,
glad to like be coming a bit full circle with my fine art and writing, bringing them together in that way.
together.
So yeah, that's my excitement, the apprenticeship, the big book. Um, It started at about 700 and some odd pages, and we're scaling it back a bit. But just to give you an idea of the scope of the book, it is large, large and full.
I can't wait. Now, speaking of, herbs from the motherland, in this book as well, you also brought up Juneteenth
Yeah.
and practices around that in the summertime, and I was just like, yes, like,
And yeah, and the funny thing about that is, like, I think my sentence is something like, "There's a little known holiday called Juneteenth," because at the time when Four Seasons of Mojo was written in 2005, 2006, that was the case, but
mhm,
no more.
mm,
It
mm.
is well known now and a national holiday. It's just amazing. Just absolutely amazing.
And hearing that you're gonna have your own original artwork in that is such a blessing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, I always talk to spiritual people, and it almost never fails that they also have a creative side to them,
Yes,
whatever that may be.
yes,
And to be able to blend your creative side with your spiritual side is such, I mean, that's the gift that keeps on giving. I
mhm.
mean, you were given a gift, and to share it with the world, that is the ultimate, that's the purpose. That's why we're here.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I agree, and I feel, um, you sweat a little bit, you're like, "Phew, I can get all of this done," like,
You
how does
are.
it look, like, all of that stuff, but, it's all generating excitement in me that I can share once the book is out. Maybe I come back here and we talk about it.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. So, in our last time here,
Yeah.
there's first of all, I kind of want to give a shout out because you have a lot of your friends in here, and Facebook users, you have to put your name in there, otherwise it just shows up as Facebook user. But a big shout
Thank
out to
you.
Zelma, to Robert, Lavetta, to Alicia Ross, to Sunflower Seven. Um, oh my goodness, we have Marius, Melly Martinez,
Oh
a
my
lot of people, Oshun Funke.
oh, wow,
So many people here to show you love
that's
and to
beautiful.
support you. Steven is here. Yes,
Yeah,
Steven. So
thank
thank you
you.
all so much for coming tonight. And
Yes.
so for Stephanie, for our audience and for those who are going to be watching on the replay, regardless of what we talked about, whether it's about you or your books or this new book or your upcoming books, is there anything that you would like to leave for our audience? Any last words you'd want to leave to our audience?
Yeah, there are. So I would say find your footing and stand firm in it. So you're going to find your beliefs, your way of practicing, your way of speaking your truth, and be unwavering
Mm,
in that truth, in that place that you find. That's my wish for you guys.
yeah, we need that. We need that.
Yes, we all
Ashe, amen, all the words.
say, I say all of it.
Stephanie Rosebird, thank you so, so, so much.
You
So much for coming tonight.
too. And thank you guys so much for being here. It's an honor to be in your presence and be before you. So thank you. Thank you for bringing all of your good vibes here.
And to our audience members, the ones who are with us live, and to the ones who will be watching us on the replay, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure you follow Stephanie Rosebird at www.stephanierosebird.com and on Instagram, s.r.bird.
Yes,
and
I
most
look forward to
importantly,
it.
and most importantly, this is how we grow, you guys. Have a good night.